Hi everyone, it's Jaymie here. I'm a mindset coach and energy healer for nonconformists. Today I want to share with you guys a visualization technique that I use to stop my self-sabotaging patterns, and I use birds as a tool for myself. And this has been a really powerful process for me, and it started with me really being honest with myself and really exploring where did I learn these habits of self-sabotage, because self-sabotaging is a habit that exists in all of us, but the reason why they've developed, how they've developed, what our trigger is unique to our story. And this is something that for a really long time I resisted, because growing up I did live in an environment where I was really mistreated, and I didn't like how helpless it made me feel. And even as a child, I really wasn't playing the cooperative victim, so to speak. I was very combative. I was very aggressive and defensive in my and like I was very offensive, like I was very much like offense more than defense, and I was constantly advocating for myself. And even as an adult, I'm very direct, I'm very expressive. So the idea of looking at, okay, you keep self-sabotaging yourself. Why do you do that? Where did you learn this from? Because at some point in your life you learned that it was dangerous to succeed or get what you want. And so you keep repeating this cycle of sabotaging the things that you truly desire. It's important to understand where that comes from. I had a lot of resistance around that. And when I finally let go of the idea that being a victim made me helpless, that it was a victim mentality, that I was perpetuating it, and I let all of that go, I really gave myself permission to feel how I feel. I think it's so important to not censor ourselves and, tell this story of like, this is bad, this is good, because then we start to fragment who we are and reject aspects of ourselves in our past. And I think it's so important to be open and be like, you know what, these things happen. And if I didn't put a label that it's good or bad, what would I say I experienced? Where did this come from? Because then you get a lot of insights. And so what came to me is I learned self-sabotaging through my mother. She's a narcissist. She's been very manipulative to me, and she used to really encourage me and stuff like that. I get all pumped up so that she can shoot me down. It's like, in order to make me feel like shit, it's like, you gotta like she put me in this state where I really felt like I could have what I wanted. And it was like this level of strategy that she used, and it was really hurtful and it was really upsetting. And as an adult, I no longer put myself in that situation where I just don't put myself in that situation, but I've still learned that this is still the behavior that I learned to, want what I want, to let myself have it and then crash, or let myself taste it and then crash. Now, I want to make it clear that, I don't reflect on this coming from a place of I blame my mother because she was being fucked up and this and that. She was being fucked up. Absolutely. And I'm not taken away from any of that. But that sort of, and I let myself feel that anger as well in the past, but I chose to not hang on to it because it doesn't serve me at this point. And I think that something that's so important to remember when you are around narcissistic people is to recognize that while it doesn't make it okay for them to mistreat anyone, another aspect of this is that they do this because they're also in so much pain, and by hurting other people, they're actually experiencing some relief and comfort in their own lives. And while I don't agree with their execution and how they go about it, I can understand the desire to want to feel relief and comfort in your life, especially when you feel like shit most of the time. And so for me, it took me a long time to really come to that understanding place. Like, I was like, why should I have to be understanding? Why can't she just not be a fucked up person? And yes, these are valid points, but ultimately, again, they didn't serve me. And I think what I really most needed to get out of this experience and this realization was I wasn't being mistreated because I was undeserving of being loved and cared for. This had nothing to do with me. This has to do with someone else being upset, so they needed to comfort themselves, and I just happened to be there. And it sucks, absolutely, but I want you to know that if you're a victim of narcissist, or if you've been hurt in this way, that this is nothing to do with you. But that's kind of another video, so let me just go back into the focus of how birds can help you end your self-sabotage. So the thing is, when we have experience like these as kids, we start to create this story and this understanding of what we feel that we deserve. And so my idea was, I can admit that I want something, I can try to go for it, I can get a taste of it, and then I'm just gonna crash. I'm not gonna let myself have what I want. And now I'm like, for a while I was still playing this script, and sometimes, if I'm being honest, I still play it where I'm playing all roles. Like, my mom isn't there to participate, but I'm still fulfilling that pattern. And so I imagine it as like let's just pretend you're a bird, and the way to teach yourself how to fly is to go up this building, right? So in order to do that, and then you like jump off of the top of the building and you start flying, right? Well, I'm never going to learn to fly if I don't get into the building and then go up the floors, right? So my mom would be like, come on, you can totally do this. This is great. And then when my mom was gone, I was like, okay, I want to do this. I want to do this. I really want this. And then I'm like, yeah, you can do it. I believe in you. You do this, girl. Da, 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 da. All these different things, right? I go up to the top of the building, and then I jump, and I'm now like flying, right? Things feel really great. And then I fucking crash. Like, I caused this myself. And sometimes I feel like this, it's almost like the way that I self-sabotage, it's like a magnet, because it's this pattern, this unconscious pattern. It's almost like a reflex. It's automated. And I personally find this come up the most when there's someone that I'm interested in. And even if we're just friends and we're having a great conversation, we're having a great time, or maybe the relationship is going well, or like we just had sex and everything was just so incredible, and now it's the next day. I feel like it usually takes like the next day for me, like 24 hours to process the experience and really let myself marinate and simmer in that joy and that like expansion. And then there's this dialogue. I mean, it's like insanely detailed, where it's the person that I like telling me why he'd never be interested in me, why like he would never go out with me, and just like really in a mean-spirited way that like no guy that I've ever been interested in would ever talk to me like that. And this isn't a reflection of their character. It's just that I'm so vicious and I'm so detailed, and I script this out to say exactly the most painful things that I would have to feel in order to feel so much like shit that I bring myself to tears. And this is something that I do at home in my own time. So a lot of people don't know that this is something that I put myself through. And so this like negative self-talk is my way of crashing myself down. And I see it as like almost like, oh my God, I can't control it. It just happens. Like, I'm sure like, you've heard that whole like, don't react, just observe and witness what's happening. Well, when I'm going through this, like, I'm not witnessing, I'm not observing like until after it's done and like everything is like just desecrated. Then I'm like, oh, well, now I'm observing the after effects of like the wildfire that just burned everything down. But I wasn't necessarily able to see it in the beginning. And even when I noticed it, I wasn't inclined to want to stop myself. Like, there's something addictive about wanting to still say it. Like there's this certain emotional baseline and this certain chemical pattern of like emotional state that I have to like be in to put myself through. And I'm just like, I feel compelled. I have to follow through this process. I just have to do it. 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 And I really didn't like the idea of feeling like, it was automatic, that I didn't have any power over me, because then I beat myself up that I didn't recognize this beforehand, that I didn't witness it, I wasn't observing. And the idea that there's this magnet pulling me down feels really disempowering, because it feels like it's something outside of me controlling me, and I'm not strong enough to fight it. Not that I should fight it, but these are all the thoughts that are going on in my head, right? And one thing that I've learned about myself, and something that I always tell my clients, is it's always better to work with yourself than against yourself. When you stop fighting yourself, even if they're qualities and habits that you're not crazy about, even if they're things that don't necessarily serve you right now, when you learn to be loving and accepting with it, when you learn to leverage it and work with yourself rather than against yourself, then you're actually going to either, one, see a value in why that's there. You're wired the way you are for a reason, and it's actually meant to serve you, and you just need to recognize that by not being so hard on yourself. And or once you learn to be accepting of this part of you, then then you be more open, you stop resisting. So then solutions and opportunities and ways to actually eliminate this or transmute this into a habit that's actually going to benefit you, or to just eliminate it because that's what's best for you, tends to show up. And so with that story in mind, I just kind of like am preparing myself. Like, I know, like, if I'm gonna go and like see someone that I like or something like that, things are probably gonna go well. I do what's called tapping. It's called or EFT. It's emotional freedom technique. And you basically tap on certain parts of your body. They are acupressure points. And what this does is it works with your nervous system, and it really does a wonderful job calming you down and deactivating charged emotions and negative thought patterns. And so basically, unlike a lot of other self-growth tools, with tapping, you're actually encouraged to express all of the negativity, the rage, the resentment, the things you're told that you're not supposed to talk about because it's going to be perpetuating and it's really fucked up. Because the thing is, yes, after a certain point, if you just keep the story alive, then you could be perpetuating it. But by not addressing it, you're just internalizing it, and it's still inside of you. And there's got to be some way for you to express it and unload yourself. You know, that's really an important aspect. So what I'll do is I'll tap, and you know, you can either bitch about things that you're upset about, or you can just kind of prime yourself and prepare your nervous system to calm itself and to prepare yourself for the situation that's about to happen, and to give yourself an opportunity to have a different experience. So I may say, hey, you know what, I'm about to go have dinner with so and so, and this is someone that I really like, and I want to get to know this person. To me, this symbolizes me letting myself admit what I want, that I like this person, and that I'm going to do something about this. I'm going to go for it. And this is me now entering the building, and I'm going up the stairs so that I can get to the rooftop, and eventually I'm going to fly. Okay, this is like making plans to go have dinner with someone, right? Because I know that when I have a good time, the next step is going to be this huge crash. You know, so it's kind of like preparing yourself. Like, if you know you're going to have a night out of drinking, you know, like, drink some water. Don't go on an empty stomach, you know, like, just prepare yourself accordingly. This is what I do. And I just remind myself, like, hey, you know, and I know that you've had this pattern of self-sabotage, and I want you to know that you are amazing. You don't have to experience these things. You are a wonderful human being. But if you do happen to experience it, and you allow that self-sabotage to take place, you're still an amazing person. You are absolutely loved. And I just remind myself of what an incredible person I am, as a way to center myself as much as possible, right? And then actually hanging out, feeling good, having a good time is me jumping off the top of the building, and I'm starting to fly. Okay, and then at this point, the next day, what I try to do is, when I wake up, I like literally set my alarm, and it's like, start tapping. You know, it's like, hey, you know, this is the period through which, you know, you usually get upset. And I say this because it's a pattern disrupt for me. Now, if I just wake up upset, then I just take it from there. Like, I work with where I am, rather than trying to force myself and shift out of a place that I'm not cooperative about going towards. So if I'm just already upset, I'm like, I just tell the story. Yeah, so, you know, I created this really elaborate story in my mind. This is what he said, and it was just so fucked up, and I can't believe he was so cruel, and da-da-da-da. What the fuck is wrong with me that I'm thinking this? This is just so ridiculous. Why do I do this all the time? I'm never going to be able to get what I want. This is the thought process that I had. Like, I just let that shit rip, right? And I keep doing that until I experience this catharsis. Like, eventually, you're going to feel tired, and you're going to feel a little better. You might still feel like shit, but you'll feel this slight shift in your energy, okay? And that's when I might take a few breaths, I might take a break, and then I just like acknowledge, you know what, like, this is part of a self-sabotaging process. It doesn't, like, it's, you know, it feels real, it feels really upsetting, and I just want to honor that. Like, the first thing is, once I let myself experience it, I give myself space to be like, you know what, I know that you're really upset about this experience, and I just want to let you feel this. because this is how I feel, and acknowledging myself is a gesture of self-love and acknowledgement, and really sitting with myself and being present with my feelings, which is so important. Because if you're rejecting aspects of yourself because you think that it's bad or negative, you're rejecting yourself. And it's like, you don't want to feel rejected. Don't perpetuate that. Like, that doesn't make sense, you know? And when you give yourself permission to feel like shit, particularly when you're tapping, you actually move through it faster. So that's what I do. And then once I do that, I'm like, you know, and I'm just open to the possibility that I say something in the terms of like, I don't try to like make myself say something that doesn't feel real, like affirmations. To me, that causes too much internal conflict. So I'll just say like, you know, I know you're really upset right now. I know you're really upset right now, but I want you to remember that you're not going to feel this way forever. You've felt this way in the past. You've shifted out of it. And I'm just open to the possibility that things actually aren't like the way I've concocted in my head. And then just talk about what something likely is, what's going on, you know, and just kind of like going from like, okay, I feel like shit to, you know, let me be open to a different experience, a different possibility, a different outcome. And then you'll start to feel even lighter and, you know, maybe a little bit more like yourself, right? And then I start talking about the things that I actually do want. So it's like detoxing, kind of crawling to feel like, you know, to move out of that space, and then really getting up and walking, and then maybe like run, so to speak, if you want. But this is the process that I take myself through. And so when I do this, I'm not always visualizing the bird. Sometimes I am, but even now I just gave the analogy of me like crawling and then walking and running, you know. It doesn't really matter what analogy you give, and you know, you may not even be a visual person, in which case you can translate this into something else that works for you. But my point is, sometimes when I do this, I do visualize the bird, myself as a bird, and I feel myself kind of sinking down, and then I let myself fly up. Like, I'm no longer resisting sinking down. I was at the beach earlier today, and I noticed that there were certain birds in this one area where like they just kind of were like swirling, and they were having such a hard time. And I realized that all the other birds were like, they were like in full effect and like control of like their flight. And there were only a few birds that really weren't able to push past like where they were at. And like eventually they went down, and that reset them. And then when they came back up, things were great again. So now I no longer see it as like going down as like a bad thing, but I just visualize what's happening as I'm doing the tapping and I'm working through all of this. Sometimes I may feel this little dip, and because I don't want to resist how I feel, I land down, but I do it on my own. I don't feel like something is like pulling me down. Oops. Sorry about that. Or it'll be something like maybe I'll just land on a building that's a little bit lower, or I'll keep flying, or maybe I feel like I'm swaying, and you know, I'm not as like optimistically flapping, you know, like to me I see that as like things are great and I'm so excited. Other times I might just be like, everything is cool and everything is calm. Whatever the situation is, you know, really what I'm trying to get out of this like exercise is to not feel like something is like tugging me down. That's really the big thing for me, to just kind of let myself organically respond in a way that feels best for me, and to just be open. This has really helped me so much to sort of have that visual, because otherwise, you know, when you're in the thick of it, everything might feel like just an emotional hot mess, and it's hard to kind of sift through it. So I wanted to share with you guys what has worked for me. Let me know in the comments if this resonates with you. If you have a process that you follow that you really enjoy, please share that as well. And if you like this video, please like it, please subscribe it, share this with your friends and loved ones that you feel will benefit from this video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.